to dance it away. I tried to put one in the air. I made my credit card bill. Okay. Let me stop playing. That's one of my favorites on the album, honestly, because he is so open and vulnerable about, you know, this admiration that he has for somebody that's in the same industry. And yeah, so today is pretty much a continuation of the list that I am working on, which is currently the albums that impacted my life. And I left y'all on Sunday, and I had 2 albums from Sunday, which were To Pimp a Butterfly and 2014 Forest Hills Drive. So I'm just gonna go ahead and jump right into it. And next on my list is Kanye West, Graduation. This is actually the first album that I bought for myself. And yeah, so I was 13 years old in the 9th grade. And I was having a skating party for my birthday. And my brother actually came up to surprise me. At the time, he was living in Tennessee for college. And he came up and surprised me. And it was just great to see him again. Like, I remember seeing him and like trying to skate faster to him, but I'm over there like trying to make sure I don't fall. So, but I finally got to him. I gave him a really big hug. And after my skating party, we left from there and we went to the mall. Around the middle of the song, he talks about how Jay-Z was performing at Madison Square Gardens, and because of their close relationship, he assumed that he was going to be called on stage and able to perform with Jay-Z. But instead, he's informed that he has to buy tickets in order to attend. So after we left Aeropostale, we actually went to FYE and go down to the bottom and comment on how many of y'all actually remember FYE. So I go in there and I'm walking around a little bit. I'm like, okay, I don't really know what I want to really listen to. But then I see the cover art for Graduation and it just drew me in. I remember dealing with the denial that my dad has yet disappointed me once again. But I mean, honestly, I felt like that built up a lot of different anger and a lot of resentment, and I built up a lot of walls that I'm still unpacking to this day. Let go parts of yourself that makes you you, and you are basically conformed into what you think you need to be in order to be successful in life. And the first song though, up Mr. West, Mr. Fresh, Mr. by himself, he's so impressed. I mean, damn, did you even see the test? You got these motherfucker, these Rosie Perez. Good morning. One of my personal favorites though. Did you realize that you were a champion in their eyes? Yes, I did. So I packed it up and brought it back to the crib. This is on some of how we live. But it ain't that serious. That album brings back so many memories. Man, like I love that album, but in all actuality, that album really was a pivotal moment for me because it really cemented my love for hip-hop. I listen to this album on a daily basis. Like when I love something, I'm kind of obsessed with it low-key. Like I grew up on hip-hop, so I will say that, you know, I've always had an interest in hip-hop and I always had a love for it, but hearing Graduation by Kanye, that really cemented it. Like that shit was in the ground. Like there was no going back after that album. That album really spoke to my self-confidence. I felt like Kanye was speaking to my self-confidence because he was able to talk his shit, back it up, and you know, it was just a really dope ass album. Like it has definitely been a huge part of my life. So from Graduation, I have been a fan of Kanye, and I've always admired about Graduation is that he is so secure in his self-confidence and he doesn't care about how others perceive him. So, you know, I know a lot of people consider him to be arrogant. I feel like you're supposed to be undeniably confident, especially about your craft and what drives your passion. You're supposed to be your biggest cheerleader because nobody else is going to root louder for you than you. Now, don't get me wrong, Kanye has been saying some off-the-wall shit in the most recent years. he said and did some hurtful shit. I mean, he did. But back in 2007, when I was 13, and hearing graduation for the first time or hearing it on a daily basis, it made me see how talented Kanye West is as an artist. I mean, a lyricist, but hands down a producer. The fact that he was a producer of Graduation, it just shows how his mind works on the outside of this realm. He taps into the part of himself where his genius resides, and he's able to take a sample and freak it in some kind of way, and then he can create something unheard of and fresh. And I really love the subjects that he tackled in this album. He's talking about how he's hired at universities to encourage kids to stay in school, but, you know, talk about irony because he is a college dropout. He talks about how the school system is set up and how it's designed, and he also talks about how there is such a push on the importance of it is to go to college and get a degree. There's so much emphasis put on this idea that in order to be successful, you have to obtain a college degree. In some cases, you are following blindly to the status quo and you let go of your dreams and you do what you're told. Parts of yourself that makes you you, and you are basically conformed into what you think you need to be in order to be successful in life. I am not saying that having a college degree is conforming and just doing what you're told. That is far from what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that it only just became recently okay to go a different route after high school. I mean, if we're being honest, for a long time, it felt like college and obtaining a college education and getting that degree was the only route to success. And if you did not get a college degree, then you would be labeled as a failure. That's essentially how it felt if you were to tell somebody, hey, I'm not going to finish college, or hey, I'm not going to go to college. I remember being about 10 years old, and me and my stepdad was having a conversation, and he asked me what did I want to do in my life. And I told him that I wanted to be the person that wrote the movies, which I later learned is a screenwriter. He basically told me that I wanted to do something that was more practical because being successful at being a screenwriter would be damn near impossible. Looking back on it, that was really the moment where I felt like I had to do something else that was going to satisfy everybody else and not myself. And then I began to tell people, you know, I wanted to either be a plastic surgeon or a doctor, and it morphed into being a journalist because I love to write, and then it morphed into me being a professor because I love to research. But if I was being completely 100% truthful to myself, I didn't want to do none of that shit. But I knew having those type of titles or, you know, going down those particular paths, then I would make the people around me that I love, I would make them proud of me. You know, it recently just became okay to do what you love and the money will come. Like, creatives know that whenever we do what we love and we give it 100% and we are passionate about it and consistent, then the money will eventually come and we can be successful from our dreams. Kanye's fearlessness and his big dreams made me feel like I could dare to have big dreams myself and go after them in a full sprint. He was so confident in his own dreams that it didn't matter what somebody else said. It didn't matter if people felt that it was far-fetched, unobtainable. He made sure that his dreams got accomplished. This one line that I thought was so funny. He said, people talk so much shit about me in barbershops, they forget to get their hair cut. That means that people focus so much on about what you're doing, they're not even focused on themselves. They go into the barbershop and forget to get their hair cut because they so wrapped up in somebody else's lives that they forget what's going on in their own lives. The last song on his album is an ode to Jay-Z called A Big Brother. Now, on this particular song, he's talking about his admiration for Jay-Z, who he considered to be his idol at one point, and then he ends up becoming a close friend, and then at one point, they started to refer to each other as brothers. At the beginning of the song, he's talking about how much pride he feels within himself because how Jay-Z admired his work as a rapper instead of just being a producer. Around the middle of the song, he talks about how Jay-Z was performing at Madison Square Gardens, and because of their close relationship, he assumed that he was going to be called on stage and able to perform with Jay-Z. But instead, he's informed that he has to buy tickets in order to attend. He felt that he was being overlooked by somebody that he not only considered to be his friend and his mentor, but somebody that was his brother. And he just really couldn't understand why Jay-Z would do something like that to him. He felt that Jay-Z was only seeing him as a producer and then seeing him at the bottom of the totem pole. His pride made him feel like in order to be the best, he had to knock Jay-Z off of his throne. Now, at the Grammys, he was asked who inspired him, and he said that he inspired himself. but he knew deep down that he always idolized Jay-Z. Then at one point he told a mutual friend that he felt like Jay-Z was copying him because he had a song with Coldplay at one point. Then Jay-Z came out with a song with Coldplay. He said that he ended up admitting that he was wrong and he felt that he should have been honest with Jay-Z from the jump. He ends the song by basically saying that if you admire somebody, then you make sure that you give them their flowers because you never know when God is going to call them home. That's one of my favorites on the album, honestly, because he is so open and vulnerable about, this admiration that he has for somebody that's in the same industry it is in. Now, I don't agree with what everything Kanye West says, but I will admit I love how vocal he is about how he feels, and he does not care about how anybody feels about it. He's going to speak his truth and always stand on that. From the very beginning when he came into the hip-hop industry, he always been himself. He never been scared to be himself. And at a time where it was really popular to wear baggy streetwear, he came into the game wearing polo shirts, windshield sunglasses, and designer backpacks. He inspired an entire generation, and he is one of the most notable fashion moguls in the world today. He inspired a generation to dare to dream and to have undeniable confidence about your dreams and yourself, and to always be yourself. And I just wanted to leave y'all one of my favorite verses. I've been waiting for, ain't it? That people pay paper for, damn it. They can't stand it. They want something new. So let's get reacquainted. Became a hood favorite. I can't even explain it. I surprised myself too. Life of a dawn. Lights keep going. Coming in the club with that fresh shit on. Something crazy on my arm. And here's another hit, Barry Bonds. Alright, so one of my next favorite albums on this list is 444 by Jay-Z. This album came out in June 2017, and to me, it sounded like having a conversation with Jay-Z himself. He talks a lot about on this album. He talks about how he's accepting of his mother's sexuality. He talks about how his infidelities not only impacted his marriage, but his children as well. And he also talks about how America really views black folks regardless how loved they are or how famous they are. He calls himself out on the first song of this album. He calls out his alter ego, who is Jay-Z, and he talks about how Jay-Z's actions were detrimental towards the people around him and himself. Like, he really is honest about what goes on in this, even though I know it's public record, but he's laying it all out in the first song. He talks about how stabbing somebody over some records, and he also talks about how he egged on his sister-in-law, hence the elevator incident that happened years ago. Another one of my favorite things about this album is his emphasis on how imperative it is that we as black folks have knowledge on financial freedom. Like the part when he says, you know what's more important than throwing away money in a strip club? Credit. Growing up, I felt like I wasn't made aware on how to maintain and to have good credit and how important that is. But I felt like I was more taught on how easy it is to get into debt. But I felt like I wasn't really educated on how to have and to get good credit. And that's just from the second song on the album. Now the third song on the album is called Smile, and in it he's talking about how he's accepting of his mother's sexuality, but at the same time not caring what her sexuality is. I found out that the inspiration behind the song Smile came from an interview that Jay-Z did, and him talking about how him and his mother's relationship has become beautiful over the years, and he now considers her to be one of his best friends. And I can actually relate to that because my mom was one of my best friends too. I also loved how he said he didn't want a slice of the pie, he'd rather have his own cake. So he's basically saying how he much rather be the owner rather than somebody else owning him. He talks about the importance of ownership and how unfair it is on how the record labels run their company, how the artists eat last and often only crumbs. He brings up a lot of serious issues in this particular song. He brings up how the criminal system will fight to keep black and brown folks in prison, and simply sometimes it's over a bag of weed. Now it's legal in Colorado, but a lot of black folks are still in prison from getting caught with weed. Now around that time, please keep in mind that this is 2017, and at the time Colorado was one of the only states that allowed people to sell weed recreationally and medicinally in dispensaries. Now there are several states that allow people to sell, and Michigan is one of them. I mean, you can go and drive down 8 Mile it's hella dispensaries now. I just find it really hypocritical that it is still a lot of black and brown folks in prison when at the same time there are a lot of states that have now legalized marijuana. I mean, there is no big secret that even if different people commit the same crime, more than likely the ones that face the most jail time and the most prison time are black and brown folks. Now, one of my favorite songs on this album is 444. Like, the production alone spoke to my spirit because it just provoked a lot of emotions in me that were kept in the dark. Like, it really had this pull over me that wanted me to just be truthful and stand on it 10 toes down. And man, those lyrics! Look, I apologize, often womanized, took for my child to be born, to see through woman's eyes, took for these natural twins to believe in miracles, took me too long for this song, I don't deserve you. I cut off my nose to spite my face, I never wanted another woman to know something about me that you didn't know. He's completely pulling back the layers and he is just really unveiling his heart. He's being incredibly vulnerable in his song, which I truly applaud. It shows growth and it also shows the power of forgiveness. And I also love to see that he has taken accountability for the pain that he caused his family. I mean, throughout the entire song, you can hear him saying how he apologizes, and he doesn't say he's sorry, but he apologizes and it sounds sincere. Z was once a hardened man that was that way because of the harsh circumstances that he lived in, also not having a father figure, and basically becoming the man that he needed to be in order to essentially protect himself. In this song, I just see a man being completely comfortable in his vulnerability, and I know this is not his first song where he's basically wearing his heart on his sleeve, but you know, I grew up on like songs Big Pimpin', Change Clothes, and What's Your Name? And another one of my favorite songs on this album, and probably one that, you know, hit me in the heart the most, would have to be Adonis. Now, it sat with me a lot differently from the rest of the album because even though I listened to it multiple times and I heard it and understood it, I felt like only recently, maybe about 2 years ago, I finally realized that I actually relate to it. He is expressing his anger that he feels towards his dad and how he wasn't able to, you know, let his father know how he felt. He says, letters to my dad that I never wrote. And basically what that means is to me that he wasn't able to, you know, write down how he felt or even to really tell his father how he felt. So he never really communicated with him how his father affected his life so much. He does talk about giving his dad some kind of grace because his dad initially wanted to do the right thing. I mean, he did get his mother pregnant and he accepted his other siblings from a previous relationship that his mother had. He does recall different lessons that his father taught him in his earlier years, but he also feels like that his dad was preparing him for something, but not really realizing why he was teaching him these different lessons. And the line that really got me was when he said, shot junk in your arms more than your veins was pumping. And I remember hearing that about 2 years ago, not realizing like, oh my God, he's describing my dad. He's dealing with his dad's addiction, but also dealing with the disappointment of being told that by his dad that he was gonna do something for him, but he ended up falling through because that's just the uncertainty that comes with having somebody that you love struggle with an addiction. But as a child, instead of viewing it as a disappointment, you first view it as denial. Like, I remember dealing with the denial that my dad has yet disappointed me once again. But I mean, honestly, I felt like that built up a lot of different anger and a lot of resentment, and I built up a lot of walls that I'm still unpacking to this day. You know, he wishes that his dad was able to kick the habit and that he would have reached out to get help because it is extremely hard to fight an addiction on your own. I mean, it is a lot of hard work in order to reverse all the disappointment and to actually mend a broken relationship. And so he didn't get a chance to actually mend that broken relationship because his father unfortunately passed away. But my dad is still here. And although my father is still alive, I actually am not on speaking terms with him currently, just to protect my own inner peace and my own happiness. But, you know, Hopefully, in the future, things change, but who knows as of right now. And at the end of the song, he talks about how not having a father in his life, it propelled him into wanting to be a better father for his own children. And I can relate to that in some way because I feel like I chose the perfect father for my two boys. Like, my two boys are able to have the father that I didn't have growing up. I mean, I had my grandfather up until the age of 10 when he passed, but I do feel a sense of relief to know that my boys don't have to experience the same thing that I did. The entire album, 444, really spoke to my maturity level because I could sit there and appreciate the different variety of subjects that he was tackling, and it really felt like a therapy session in with Jay-Z. Right, so that pretty much concludes today's video. I gave you all 2 more from my list, and this upcoming Sunday, I'll reveal my next 2. So, with that being said, I wanted to leave you all with our tagline, which is, it is beautiful to rise from the ashes and still shine. Peace.